it's tough running a foam business. There's all kinds of stuff that you have to do on a daily basis, and I imagine the owners are always trying to look at simplifying as much as possible. But so they'll just say, I just look at the takeoff, and then look at how much liquid's left in the drums. I either put the stick in it to measure it, or I use my Graco Insight, or just measure stroke counts, or whatever it might be. So I just count how much liquid volume did I use, what was my takeoff, and then that's my yield. And then that's it, that's the end of story. And then that's how good my foam is performing. But that also factors in how good your applicator is performing, right? It's kind of throwing both of them in together, combined, right?
Because like you said, if you got a newer sprayer that they bid 3.5 inches on a wall and the new sprayer installs 5, you've got 1.5 inches of waste that they're not accounting for. So I mean, it's very important.
Yeah, but as an owner, what I say is, well, I don't, that to me, I say, well, I care about that, but from the aspect of there's nothing I can really do about it after the fact because he's already oversprayed it, and so I just need to know my job cost.
Yeah.
And so how much foam did we use in that job, what was the takeoff, and that's my yield. But like to your point, it's like, well, what they just missed is like, well, how good is that applicator and how much room for improvement is versus what is the actual capability of the foam, because if you don't separate those two, you're grouping them all together, then you're saying, well, all my applicators are the same and all my foams are the same, or you're giving all the credit to the foam or you're giving all the credit to your applicators, one of the two. And so you have to be able to separate what is the capability of a foam from what is my capability of my applicators, right? Yeah. And so how do we do that on a job site then?
Well, I mean, in the field when we're doing it, we show them, we're honest and upfront what we show with yields. Like, we've got this with our product, and well, that's considering all the waste. And then we'll show them pictures of the amount of waste that their applicator has, or basically if they're on site, we'll do the yield calculations with the owners to show them like, oh yeah, you bid 3.5, but here's what you got, here's what this sprayer's doing at this job, here's what this other sprayer's doing at this job, to show them how good each of their guys are, so we can separate them, so we can show them, like I said, and train them to do what the owner needs to do and what we need to do as a manufacturer, so they get everything they can out of the product.
Okay. So what's the process for determining what is the maximum yield or capability out of a product, and just looking at that? Because I know that's how, when we send out our SWT field technicians out there, that's the number one thing you guys do out there is yield. What is it? Typically just measure an area and zero out the stroke count on the machine, spray that particular area, then you measure depths and you kind of take an average of the depths. You want to walk me through that process?
So our team does, a lot of guys will do one calculation. Our team primarily does 4 to 5 on a full house. If they're doing roof and walls, we'll do 4 to 5. We'll do a sun section, like a sun side of the house. We'll do a shade side of the house. Same with the roof, to give us an average more, I guess, closer to what the owner of that company would do, because like you said, they do a whole house yield, right? So we're trying to get as close to them as we possibly can. So we'll do multiple calculations per house and give us an average. So we're closer to what they see, especially if the sprayer's right on, say the sprayer's right on, and they are spraying 3.5, and then like I said, so we can kind of be on the same page as them. But you're right, we do, an area, we'll zero out the stroke counter, or we'll just run back and forth because a lot of times guys won't even use the stroke counter, so we have to try and show them why that's important as well, so they know to help job costs as well. So,
and when you're taking this maximum yield, you take a full depth reading, whatever they sprayed. If they, if it's a 2x6 cavity and they overfilled it by 2 inches, you measure those extra.
Yeah, we'll do 4 to 6 calculations depending on wall height. So we'll get an average for each cavity in a 20-foot long by 10 feet high section. We'll do 4 to 5 each cavity and give us an average to kind of, like I said, once again, be closer to what the takeoff of the house was. Because if we just did one depth check, that's not, it doesn't tell us.
But in your maximum yield calculation, you guys measure in all that overage and under the roof deck, and because what you're trying to say is like, look, this is what the product is maximum capability is, including the waste. And then because when you're including it there, now you're getting the maximum yield of that particular product. And then you say, well, what is that in comparison to what you guys actually did on the job site versus the takeoff? And then you got the two. So this one may be, if we're using like a yield monster, it might be 25,000, could be as high as 26,000 in some cases. And then, what did you really get on the job? Well, I only got 21. Okay, well then now you got 5,000 board foot spread. That now becomes the measure of improvement, right?
Well, yeah, and then, like you said, that's very easy to have that big a spread when a guy is supposed to spray 5.5 and he sprays 7.5, and it's a 3,000 square foot roof. It's very easy to have a large gap like that, and that's where we use it, like you said, the difference of maximum yield and installed yield to try and show them what it's capable of to what they're seeing.
Yeah, because now that becomes, to me, that becomes now the measure of improvement for that applicator. It's like, look, hey, it is what it is. The guy sprayed, he oversprayed, but if you're not giving that feedback to the applicator, then how the hell does he ever know how to get better? Because it has to start with some type of measure. And so that's the challenge that I see for contractors out there. If all you care about is, hey, what's my job cost? And all you do is you just measure, hey, what did I use versus what the takeoff was? Now then at that point you're kind of surrendering, aren't you, to like, well, we're never going to get better because we're not measuring what really matters, which is some type of feedback mechanism to that applicator to say, hey, look, you're right on the money, or look, here's your improvement. Yeah. From improvement. Yeah, and you got 5,000 board feet that you're not getting out of the product. How can you close that gap? Now, as a business owner or as an applicator, is like what percent efficiency should you be? So if your maximum yield is out there, let's say 25,000 board feet, what's like some of the most elite sprayers? What are they hitting? Are they hitting the 24s for
On a whole house, yeah. Like, so if you got walls and a roof, yes. Like guys that are just doing roof lines, they're on the higher ends. They're 26s because it's just a roof. You're wide open. You got one pass and 6 inches.
So your installed yield can be as high as 26,000. So pretty close to what your maximum yield is at that point.
So, but like I said, when it comes to a whole house, you have walls, right, and you have waste factored in it. So the average comes down a little bit. So that's where the most of the room for improvement is with Yield Monster and our products is training guys to not only adjust and use pressures and heats to control the foams to help subtract waste, so like their installed yield is close to our maximum yield. So like I said, we're trying to bridge the gap, right, and train these guys.
To me, absolutely, if you're in contracting work, you have to understand your installed yield. Otherwise, you can't know your job cost. But if you just stop there, you're never going to get better. So at that point, you're just surrendering. You might as well just buy the cheapest product out there on the market and pay all your guys. Get newbie sprayers because it doesn't really matter because nobody's ever getting better. And hope for the best and kind of cross your fingers. Versus the companies that want to kind of move to that elite status and hey, how do you move into the upper echelons where you're squeezing every single little dollar of that job site? Well, your applicators have to be better. They have to start getting better yields. And the only way to, from my understanding, the only way of knowing that is you have to understand that maximum yield and then what are your guys actually getting on the takeoff, and then understand that gap or that delta between those two, and then provide that as a feedback mechanism back to your applicators, and then incentivize them or encourage them somehow of how do they bridge the gap? How do they become better? And how do you reward somebody for doing that? So what's your thoughts on that, of getting alignment between what do the owners want and what are the applicators? I know it's kind of a touchy subject.
Well, no, it is, but I think that's the most important part, because if you don't have alignment and your owner wants to use a product, that they have to care a little bit more. They have to do this, they have to pay attention to ambient temperatures and mixing and everything else for that owner to get the 26,000 board feet. If the sprayers and the applicators and the owners don't have alignment, there's no way, like you said, if they can't trust their sprayers to care just a little bit to help them get those yields, then like you said, they're going to go for the cheaper foam. They don't trust their sprayers, and like you said, that's why it's a touchy subject, because if the owners don't trust their sprayers, like, well, I can't trust them to do this to get me the yields that I want. And like you said, that's why it is a touchy subject. But I think it's very important to have alignment. So like you said, so there's a feedback loop. Like, hey, on this job, you start at 20. Hey, on this job, you got 22,000 installed yield. They're still getting, a maximum of 25,000, but you're getting that we're starting to bridge that gap, and it's important. So they, like you said, so they feel like they've made an improvement, and like you said, they kind of going in the right direction to where we both need them to go, right? Like you said.